It starts quietly: a job posting, a resume, a clean portfolio, a friendly voice on a video call, speaking perfect English, maybe with a slight accent, but nothing that sets off alarms. Just another remote worker applying for another remote job in a world where everyone works from everywhere. But behind that pleasant smile and polished LinkedIn profile, something much larger is happening. Because what many companies don't realize is that they're not just interviewing a developer. They might be interviewing an economic soldier, part of one of the most structured, covert, and financially critical operations ever created by a government cut off from the world: North Korea's remote worker scheme. This isn't rumor. This isn't exaggeration. This is a global network of tens of thousands of workers quietly embedded in tech companies, design agencies, software firms, fintech platforms, and startups across the US, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia.
Treasury Department has sanctioned a North Korean cyber operative accused of running a scheme using remote IT jobs to raise money for leader Kim Jong-un's nuclear program. Since 2022, this operative has allegedly been stealing personal information from U.S. citizens, including names, social security numbers, and addresses, in order to disguise thousands of foreign workers as American job applicants.
Their mission isn't espionage, not at first. Their mission is survival, for themselves and for their government.
Well, North Korea's cyber capabilities received widespread attention back in 2014 with the infamous Sony Pictures cyber attack. Since then, hackers associated with North Korea's military are believed to have attacked organisations across the globe, allegations that North Korea denies. And in February this year, hackers thought to be working for North Korea stole $1.5 billion from cryptocurrency firm Bybit. And the evidence suggests the IT workers are also raising funds for the North Korean state, but in a much more mundane way.
To understand how deep this goes, you have to understand the system. These workers often live far from North Korea, China, Russia, Laos, sometimes UAE. They borrow identities.
They'll often use stereotypically Western names, like Connor Quinn. They'll describe a skill set with a bunch of buzzwords, and they'll doctor a profile picture. With Connor, for example, a reverse image search reveals that they just swapped the face on this Shutterstock image that's also been used for calendars and bestiality erotica ebooks. The profile pictures aren't all quite this ridiculous, but they do all follow a similar formula: Western name, technical skill set, doctored photo.
Your avatar is like kind of weird. Like, are you using something to like change your camera view?
They purchase stolen passports. They rent laptops, spoof Wi-Fi networks, and use telework brokers who manage their fake online personas.
The IT workers are really just the modern day equivalent of something they've really already been doing for years and years and years. The government of North Korea has always relied on kind of a criminal enterprise, more of a mafia network. Back in the day, they were selling fake pharmaceuticals. They were doing smuggling operations coming out of Japan. This is just another tool in their toolkit to get money to raise it to the top. Granted, this is a slow trickle.
And all of it is designed to achieve one thing: access. Because the more they're trusted, the more access they gain. And the more access they gain, the more valuable they become to the North Korean regime. This isn't just about earning a paycheck. These workers are funnels, pipelines, silent revenue engines feeding hundreds of millions of dollars back into their government every year. Money used not for schools or roads, but for missile development, nuclear programs, cyber warfare units like Lazarus Group, and the global operations that keep North Korea's most dangerous digital teams funded and unstoppable. Sometimes these workers pass along sensitive internal knowledge to state hackers. Sometimes they provide credentials or access routes without even being asked. Other times, they simply send home their earnings, millions quietly flowing into the shadows every year. And here's the wild part. Most companies never notice. Not small companies, not massive corporations, not SaaS founders, crypto platforms, medical tech firms, or fintech startups. They all fall for the same illusion. A great remote employee is a great remote employee. Some organizations worked with North Korean developers for 3, 4, even 5 years before discovering the truth. One US startup found out when their amazing senior engineer accidentally logged into their VPN through NISP that traced back to Pyongyang. One tiny slip in a sea of perfect lies. Another company figured it out only when the FBI literally knocked on their office door and said, "You've been hiring North Korea. Governments around the world now warn, if your company hires remotely, you might be hiring North Korea." And honestly, they're not wrong, because remote work has created the greatest camouflage the digital world has ever seen. Nobody knows where anyone really is. Nobody knows who's actually behind the keyboard. And North Korea has mastered this ambiguity better than any other nation on Earth. But what makes this threat terrifying isn't what these workers do. It's what they don't do. They don't deploy ransomware on day one. They don't leak your databases. They don't sabotage systems. They earn trust. They do great work. They become indispensable. And trust, once earned, becomes a master key that opens every door. This has created a strange new reality. The biggest cyber threat for companies today isn't malware. It isn't phishing. It isn't ransomware. It's the risk of hiring someone whose real employer is a government you absolutely do not want inside your network. And traditional cybersecurity tools? They weren't built for this. Because how do you protect a system from someone who was literally invited in through HR? This is where modern cybersecurity has to evolve.
What are some of the red flags that organizations should be looking out for during the recruitment process?
It has to start with thinking about sort of the people and then the technology that the person's using, and starting with the person. It's things like the email hasn't been listed, isn't known by any credential brokers. Well, every email should have some credentials behind it. And if they don't, and that's something you can publicly find out, to who are the LinkedIns. They reuse resumes, they reuse contacts. So you start off with that part of it, and then even at the interview phase, you can start identifying things that technically look off in terms of if they're not going off video, if you ask them irregular or unexpected questions. Which I'm a fan of, irregular and unexpected questions. Can they answer them well, or do they answer them awkwardly, or sometimes do they hang up on you? And so I think there are a few things like that you can do that begin the process. But ultimately, I used to say when we were working on a lot of these cases, they seem to be more HR than cyber and IT initially. So
a big part of it, I would say, is looking at pieces of information that don't seem to go together. One of the big indicators, for example, is the address on their ID for their employment verification and all that, and the address where they want you to send things are often different. Looking at kind of those disparate pieces of information that are, they'll very often have a story for why this is. It's practiced, but if you look at it and kind of pull back across your candidate pool, that's an unusual situation relatively. On the unusual and unexpected questions, that really is a great one going on camera, but it can be things that are sort of in the rapport building sort. So one of the examples I've seen quite a bit is to pick something off their resume, often they're kind of large state schools or whatever, is oh, I see you went to the University of South Carolina, go Cornhuskers. And look for the response, because it's the type of thing they're not prepared for, that anybody that has gone to a big public university in the United States tends to know the mascot. That one's not right, and just then gauge in the reaction from there.
Take your hand and put it in front of your face to cover it partially. No, it's not a joke, because I can see that you're using some kind of software.
The candidate refuses to comply with David's request, so he shuts down the call.
Put it like this, in front of your face. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Companies need identity verification that goes beyond a Zoom interview. They need behavioral monitoring that spots inconsistencies in login times, typing rhythms, network signatures, and geographic patterns. They need systems that can detect when someone's digital footprint doesn't make sense, even if their work performance is flawless. And that's where platforms like Tileris step in. Tileris isn't just a shield, it's a truth engine. It flags digital inconsistencies that humans overlook. It spots unusual login rhythms. It identifies impossible time zone activity. It analyzes communication style, device fingerprints, location signatures, and work patterns to build a digital truth profile of every remote worker. Visit Tileris.com to learn more.